I'm saying this in jest. I'm not
I
saying
know
this.
you are. I know you're. No, but I feel that way too.
So because I had this book. In fact, when you put the Dutch House, it didn't strike me that this is, Anne Patchett as well. And the cover, like somebody mentioned also, is so pretty, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very tempted, Gayatri, to buy the actual book, but I also just bought the Kindle version.
Yeah.
Also because it was immediate and I could read it.
Right. I actually had time, so I got the book, and
can I see the cover? The cover's quite pretty.
Yeah. Actually, the background and all is very pretty.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, like you don't judge a book by its cover and so on, but it's nice to have a good cover, I think.
Of course, yeah. It makes it more appealing.
Okay, with that, should we kick off the discussion?
Yes, please.
And Gayatri, I know you.
Okay, I'm going to read out the question, and then we can give our points of view. Should we do it like that?
Should we just like have a star rating?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Would you like to start off?
I forgot your thing is 1 to 5.
1 to 5, yeah.
I would give it a 4.5.
Wow, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. I loved the book. I just got I started reading it, and it was like someone was telling me a story. Like it just drew me in completely. And I would say that maybe at the end it sort of dragged a little bit, but the first 3/4 of the book, I just kept reading it, whenever I had time. It really like pulled me in. And I felt like someone was telling me the story of their lives. So I guess it must have been very well written for that sort of feeling for me. Yeah. And I love fiction. I'm a complete fiction person, So, yeah. Who wants to go next?
You can nominate.
Okay, Chaitra.
Okay. I felt the same way. So I think between 4 and 4.5, it's hard for me to choose. And it was exactly the same words, like literally the book drew me in. I think I finished it in the shortest period of time, and I was like reading, staying up late in the night and waking up exhausted the next day morning. So I just finished it within like 2 or 3 nights. So yes.
Paula?
I haven't finished it yet. I've just sort of started it. And I like the flow. I can't help comparing it with Commonwealth, which I read very recently as well. And like I said, it didn't strike me when you first put it up because somehow I didn't think of, Anne Patchett, I don't know, as a, a writer who's famous and, so hence books come to mind. It's in a very similar vein. It's written. So the interesting thing is, sorry, I'm giving a little long-winded answer, but basically, it is like with a house at the center, and you're telling a story, right? So the house is again there at the center, and it is flowing like a story. I think I would give it a 4. I think I will end up giving it a 4. Like maybe I did to Commonwealth. And we can discuss in detail a little bit more. But yes, it is very visual, and it is very much it's like somebody's whispering in your ear, telling you I'm doing this kind of stuff. So it's a very good storytelling character.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say 4.
Yeah. Ajay?
Yeah, I would give it a 4. And I was just discussing with Apurva when he asked me what I thought of the book. And I said it was like a walk down memory lane, in the sense that it starts with the house and how the Van Hoobeeks commissioned the house out of the money that they made in the cigarette business during the First World War. And the location was very interesting. Outside Philadelphia, and how they say they had some 200 acres of land. And by the time it was 1945 or so, they had
Yeah,
lost
it was
about
good.
everything. So it's a little scary because, I mean, in the sense that there is a very close similarity to like the erosion of wealth. This was during the Great Depression. So, I mean, right now we don't have anything similar, but that was the walk down memory lane, and what lies ahead for us now. Yeah, I'm staying at a 4 for them.
Okay. Apoorv?
Okay, I'm gonna be a slight party pooper. So
That's
for
okay.
me it was maybe like 2.5. And I was debating whether to say 3 or 2.5. Um, the good things are that I think this is the first. Um, if let's say fiction had subdivisions in terms of whatever thriller, suspense,
Genres.
mystery, whatever. I don't know what you would call this one, but this was the first of its kind for me. So it
Okay.
was definitely something that kind of I had not indulged in earlier, and the characterization were fascinating. The choice of the narrator's voice in terms of it seems like Maeve was the center of the story, but the narrator was Danny, and so like that choice was interesting. And I sometimes wonder if like how would it be different if Maeve, being the most important person, probably would have been the narrator. So there were several fascinating elements, but so this was a book I had to stick with to finish,
Okay.
as against um, it was interesting, and in some ways. It was like, हाँ कहना क्या चाहते हो? Isn't like where are we trying? Where is this leading it? For example, in a murder mystery or something like that, there is an end, right? So
Yeah.
there's this murder which is you're trying to solve it, or in let's say romantic fiction, for lack of a better thing, there's like these two people are trying to get together. Here there was just like it's one of those books that it's just there. Like,
Just a narration.
just a
Yeah.
narration, yeah, just a simple narration, and bringing out all the complexities of life, and uh, so yeah, so I think just for that reason that there was we did or there was no definite like end goal to it. I thought it was something that I couldn't it did not bring me back. It did not
Right.
there was nothing for me to know कि आगे क्या होता है इसमें. That wasn't
Right.
something that I experienced.
I can only add a little bit, having read Commonwealth, which was, I believe, it was New York Times bestseller. It has a very parallel tone, and I haven't read the whole book. And it's a complex web of relationships, right? I think that is the goal. I mean,
Right.
and what I like is it's around a physical space. Uh, Even the Commonwealth has that whole characterization around. So how I think in terms of the goal that Apu, you sort of saying that was missed, it is how one develops relationships around some core, whether it's a common space you've shared, common home, or a common time in history when there was something like I'm sure we'll all have this during the lockdown kind of thing, right? So I think it sort of grows around there. That's what makes it interesting. I wouldn't say it is like in the caliber of a really gone with the vein kind of not top notch kind of a novel, but it is very smooth narration. It just has a poetic essay kind of a feel, and the complex web of relationships is
Okay.
kind of what really drew me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the relationships definitely, the richness and the complexity was
Richness,
there.
yeah.
Okay. What I'll do is, since it's already almost 5 to 5, I'll skip to some questions, and then if there's time, we'll come back to some. Does that sound okay, Apoor?
all, I mean,
Okay,
like,
okay.
all, yeah,
So
yeah.
everyone can comment on this. What effect does Elna's leaving and return have on her children? Discuss Elna as a mother. So who would like to, I mean, just jump in. Let's have this as a discussion. Describe Elna as a mother. Like, what were your thoughts about her leaving and going all over the world, coming here to India to save people? Thoughts?
I haven't read the whole book, so it's a little hard for me to say. But maybe Chaitra also,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
young mother.
No, I think so for me, this is one of those books. I typically read fiction for me is like my comfort read, right? So last literally 2 months have been health wise and work wise been very intense. And under normal circumstances, if I had picked up, like, given what I was going through in my daily life, I think I would have preferred a light read. So I was actually surprised. This wasn't particularly a light read, right? But what I found really surprising as I was reading this book was that it was not light, but it kept drawing me in. And I was like picking it up and reading it at night when I was having breathing issues this entire 2 months, like asthma type in the night, and I
Okay.
couldn't sleep properly. And during that discomfort, I was just, this book was like my companion for almost of last 4 5 days, right? Um, what really so I was thinking a lot about this, exactly what this question is, Gayatri, because I was wondering, like, what is the psychology? Is this possible? Is this only because, is this character being represented, meaning can this character only live in the fictional world, right? Is it even possible to leave? But then I don't think, or let me put it this way. I realized that by the end of the book, I had come to the point that I felt that it would be really wrong. It's not my place to judge Elna as a mother, right? I think she sort of, what I appreciated about her character was that she was very individualistic, meaning, which is very unusual in real world as well as in fictional depictions, because women are usually represented in a very selfless manner, right? And it kind of, I don't know which one causes which one, but society also expects that from women. So
Right.
in that sense, I think that angle was very refreshing, that there was no apologeticness from her even to the end. And I think I was really surprised that even when she starts caring for this is a bit of a spoiler for Paula, but
Yeah.
so I don't know if I should say this, because Paula, at what point till where have you read?
No, go ahead and say. I'm still at the early chapters. This is the fourth chapter.
Okay. So
Yeah.
to some extent, it could be argued that her actions were responsible for Maeve's death, right? Like, meaning not directly, but it might have caused emotional upheaval, etc. And even after that, her mindset didn't seem to change at all. And I think that was something about it was very powerful and refreshing and very unlike normal fiction or normal narratives. So just one
Yeah.
sec, one sec.
Yeah. I felt very disturbed by the mother leaving her children. It gave me this uneasy feeling. And I've always thought of myself as, where for women all roles are acceptable. But I have to admit, it made me very uncomfortable. Her leaving her kids when they were so young and just going away. But then I read these lines and then I didn't mark them in the book. So I Googled them. And when I read these lines in the book, which I'll just read out, I realized, how steeped in stereotypes I am, like of the role of what a mother is. So Maeve says these lines to her brother. Men leave their children all the time and the world celebrates them for it. The Buddha left and Odysseus left, and no one gave a shit about their sons. They set out on their noble journeys to do whatever the hell they wanted to do, and thousands of years later, we're still singing about it. Our mother left and she came back, and we're fine. So, when I read those lines, I realized how deep my sort of stereotypes are, because I really felt uneasy through the whole, whenever when they were young and when there was no mother, it it made me very uncomfortable, about how she could have done that. And then when I read these lines, I realized we do that all the time. I mean, men leave all the time, whether, and we just accept it, or, and we don't hold it against them. We don't. And yet I was holding it against this mother for leaving, for leaving it. It made me so uneasy, so I thought that was a good shake to my to me. I don't know what the men have to say about this. It'll be nice to know. Apoorv or Ajay.
Twice again.
No, I want to know what you guys felt about this. About
Mother.
the mother leaving them for their, I mean, for most of their lives.
So the I feel, to begin with, I think the characterization was very believable. In terms of, it's, for example, it's hard to conceive of a mother who would make that choice, but the way it was narrated, it did not seem like, oh, this couldn't have happened. And from that perspective, I think the characterization was very interesting. Also, the way Chaita said, there's no apology.
Right.
There's like this is who I am, and I could imagine that someone who made that choice probably would carry that persona over, and that was one thing. I think for me there were a couple of things. She was certainly struggling for something. There was, I mean, like the uh, I it makes me feel like she was one of those people who needed a mission, like who needed
Yes.
to care for someone, or just to like make herself useful, or she needed someone to be the center of her life, or something, or some, like some goal or some cause. And I think kind of stepping into the Dutch house and coming into money took that away from her, and that distorted her um, equilibrium in some ways.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and then she went and like searching for that, whatever that thing was, which could center her and which would provide her that purpose in life. Happened to do philanthropic work or charity work or whatever. And even the lines that you highlighted, I think I also highlighted them. I was just trying to look for those lines. And so that's true. There's also in later part of the book, I believe there is some lines about people who leave their family in service of a greater cause, um, have, I mean, the families themselves, families take a toll,
Yeah,
and
I think.
right, and so like that does not escape. I mean that whoever, man or woman, that particular outcome does not, like does not go away.
Yeah.
uh, for 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 third persons who are not maybe like invested as a family member, I think it's hard to relate to that in light of, let's say, a larger outcome, as a like humanitarian outcome, or otherwise business outcome, or whatever, like you build this $1 billion company, or you help so many people out of poverty or something like that. So that overshadows the family aspect, but it somehow does take a toll. And for her, I think if having said all of these things, I think it was still a little surprising for me that realizing that Maeve was struggling, that somehow wasn't the 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 angle of service, or angle of I need, this could be my purpose. It did not come to her. So that was something that was a little strange to me. This is obviously towards the beginning of the book. Later, when Maeve is sick, she brings her, like, she restores her health, and she, is in service to her, and then also Andrea. So yeah, that was the only, like, funny tidbit for me. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, the
I
Andrea
had
thing,
a
yeah.
slightly different take on it. And it would probably go back to the beginning of the book where you have Fluffy, who used to live in a
Watch
house,
out.
sorry, in a house
Sorry,
near the.
sorry. I just unmuted myself accidentally.
Oh, okay. So Fluffy lives in a house next to the Dutch house, and she takes care of the property. And by virtue of the family coming in to the Dutch house, she is also taking care of the children. So what eventually, the way the story seems to progress is that caring for the property takes away from caring for the family or those residing in the house. That is one point I sort of noticed. And the other thing was a very disturbing parallel. There's a movie by Alfred Hitchcock called named Rebecca, in which the chief protagonist builds a house Manderley, and there is this Mrs.
It's a
Danvers who is like
Daphne du
a
Maurier.
caretaker for the entire estate, and she's so obsessed with caring for the property and for the estate that she doesn't care. It has to be, that one person who sort of keeps it moving. So initially, maybe when Fluffy got, you know, thrown out of a job, and Andrea comes in, the bond that she establishes with the children is that she used to be Dutch. And I think even later on, the children never really form a bond with the house as such. They form a bond with each other, but their bond to the property is not formed. That's what I thought. And whereas the uh, older generation, they seem to have this bond with the property, but not with the children.
Very interesting.
interesting, yeah. In talking just like, what did you all think about the fact that the kids kept going back and sitting in the car,
Yeah,
kept going back
that's
to their
where I
Dutch
had a
house?
question. That's where I had a question for Ajay, because I interpreted that as the children, without realizing, sort of developing a bond with the house, almost like I guess, connecting to their it seemed like the house filled the void in their lives, which was created by the mother leaving somehow in a very strange way. Um, but it's interesting that Ajay is saying that they didn't form a bond with the house. So I'm curious to hear his
Because
thoughts on
initially,
this.
what happens is like they don't care about their neighbors. They don't care about the fact that it's a equally large house. But uh, the words they use are nothing to see here. I mean, there are paintings in the house
Right.
which show the past, the legacy that the previous owners left behind, but nothing to see here. That's what it seemed to be. They didn't. It didn't sound like while the house is very much there and they are involved with every aspect of it, but they didn't think at one point in time they could see like miles and miles of grassland, and the way some of the descriptions, like rolling in the summers of the grass, and all of those very nice imagery. But at the end of the day, it was like, there's still nothing to see here.
So, there is
Hmm.
an early on in one of the first two chapters, there is I think when Andrea comes and she says, it's good to be I'm sure it's a comfort to be surrounded by them. And then the children say that she's talking about the paintings and not us, whereas we as readers would think that she's talking about it's good to be surrounded by the kids when
Right.
under these circumstances. And I think whoever makes the observation that she meant the painting. So it is almost like I don't know how it unfolds, but like they're already resenting the fact that there is all this stuff, and maybe we are not the center. So I don't know if that's how it goes forward. But this, that Andrea lingered like a virus at the Dutch house in the second chapter. It starts kind of like that, right after first appearance. So it shifts from the house to the people and how their lives may be changing um, around that house. So yeah, I'm not sure how it goes on ahead, but it could be. I'm just trying to draw a parallel with another house book, which is a House for Mr. Biswas. I'm sure some of us must have read. Catherine read House for
No,
Mr.
I
Biswas.
haven't read it.
You haven't. Good. Next, this thing. Uh, Ajay Apurva, I'm sure hasn't read. He's
I haven't.
too
Yeah,
young.
yeah, I should have read it. My generation has read it. I missed out, I think.
But it's
Yeah,
it's all about this house, right? And what it means to the wife and what it means to the husband and the rest of the family, and the completely different relationships with the house, which is uh, at the center of the lives, but very different. So I sort of that it brought me memories of House of Mr. Biswas,
right,
in the sense that how everybody else views this, having the house and how the relationships are in the house. Uh, but yeah, it's an interesting point to see that when the mother goes, I only think as what goes on in the mother's mind, and I will discover, I suppose, as it goes forward. Of course, the children get affected, and like you guys, as a mother, you feel, as a woman also, you feel that
yeah,
how can you leave? And I had a relative, I had a cousin of mine who left her husband, I mean her kids with the husband. I mean, she wanted to separate, but she said they are better off with him than me.
right,
So she had, and of course she was judged much more
right,
harshly, uh,
right.
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah,
And I don't think
And
she'd
I
even left for a cause like you're saying, but she just she thought it was bad for the for the kids if the marriage wasn't good and if you were there.
right.
She left, and similarly a man would have
Mhm.
left, right? So
Yeah, yeah. But the cause actually also was, I mean, Apurv, you said it right. Like the affluence and then the help that came in. She had nothing to do in that house, and everything it represented, the size, the money. It was not her, and she had
her,
been in a convent or something, right? She was, she wanted to be a nun, so that was the life she had chosen for herself till he came and took her out. And so she was always inclined that way, and probably just pushed her over the edge, living in this mansion and all of that she felt, she had to leave, and it was better for her to leave, I guess, and be happy. Should we move on to the next question?
Yes, please.
Danny describes his father as distant, but later says, halfway through college, I had come to see I was a great deal like my father. What kind of father was Cyril to Danny and Maeve, and then later to Norma and Bright? Ajay, you look like you're ready to say something.
Uh, uh, I thought that to Danny and May, he was a fair father in the sense that he did what he could, tried to give them the best of everything, but then he was not able to sort of sustain that um, when Norma and Bright came into their lives. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
I'm just at this point, I think, where he says that the little attention my father had left at the end of the week, he saved for me, and even that he made part of his job. So I don't know again how it will unfold
Yeah,
later, but this sort of, the child is viewing that his father is viewing everything as some job, as his work, and uh, and I think it's a very nice sentence which conveys a lot, that the little attention my father had at the end of the week, and I think
yeah,
all of us have been, we all feel this at the end of the week sometimes, that the week has ended, and we had little time for important other things,
right.
and also the only thing our father really cared about in life was his work, the buildings he built and owned and rented out. So I guess this shows like a typical father, and
Yeah, and he built up his business, so
yeah,
that's what occupied him.
yeah,
And so he wasn't sort of available, and I think the other women in the kids' lives stepped in, the help. It's not like he stepped in anymore because the mother had left. He just continued with his usual stuff. Chaitra, anything?
Yeah, I think I was, like one thing about the dad, which was very starkly stood out, was that he was never connected to either his wife's or his children's, or maybe even his Andrea or the other kids. Like, he was never connected to anybody at a core level, right? It seemed like he missed the main point about everyone. That was that was one thing that very clearly, like, it was consistently, I mean, to the author's credit, that part of that person's characterization was maintained fairly consistently. The thing that I wondered about him, and it was less about him, but more about Danny's perception of him, right? Like how he says this thing that we look at the past with the context of today, something to that effect.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I forget the exact line, but that was, I think, a very powerful line. So I was just wondering that as this narration was progressing, I started seeing that Danny started changing his point of view about his dad. And though growing up, it seemed like the dad was very distant, he seemed to feel that his dad played a more active role. Or at least that was my interpretation, that Danny's perception of his dad improved as he grew older in his life, meaning there was more empathy that he could feel towards his dad.
I think he really enjoyed those Saturdays with his dad, right? And I mean, in the end,
Yeah.
that's the career he chose for himself, doing the same thing, in the property business. And I loved how he became a doctor, but actually this is what he wanted to do. I just thought it was hilarious, like slogging away at med school, when all you want to do is
Yeah.
be a
And I thought that
businessman.
only happened in India, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously, both the kids were very intelligent, right? But yeah, you're right. It was such an Indian thing. You could relate to it very well, you know. But I think Danny ended up being like his dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, and in a way, if you think Maeve just took on mothering Danny, and so in a way, she also gave. I'm not that she was exactly like the mother, but there's some parallel to sort of her taking care of Danny and stepping up into that sort of role, right? I guess, I mean, we do end up emulating our parents more than we think more than we may want to, right?
Yeah.
One of the parallels that I came across for their relationship was like a brother sister Hansel and Gretel setting, where
Yes.
these two take care of each other,
Yeah.
and the mother is like treated as someone outside as an outsider who is like an unwelcome addition to the family. And the other thing was probably the worldly pressures that Danny was experiencing, during college. He found himself rushed into the role of father figure uh, much earlier than, his own father probably. So that's a parallel, yeah.
A father figure meaning? Sorry, I didn't get
He,
that. Like,
I mean, in the sense that he saw himself as his father halfway through college. I mean,
right,
that's like
right.
a bit too early
Yeah.
in life. I mean,
So,
it takes a good many years after
yeah,
becoming a parent that if have develop responsibilities, for keeping the house going, keeping the family going, making sure everybody is uh, happy,
yeah,
and
yeah,
feeling of well-being in the relationships amongst those living in the house. So he could not have had that sort of a feeling halfway through college.
yeah,
So
yeah. It was true. Yeah.
So early on, in this, I just had read it a couple of hours ago, where he says, mothers were the measures of safety, which meant that I was safer than Maeve. And then he goes on to say, that Sandy and Jocelyn loved us. I know they did, but they went home at the end of the day. There was no crawling into bed with them when I had a bad dream in the middle of the night. And it never once occurred to me to knock on my father's door.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that line.
Yeah, so this is quite poignant, It
Yeah,
sort of says that we all, even children, have in their own minds defined roles for mother and father,
right.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
depending on the personalities, of course. But, and that's where I felt that, what the kids feel when the mother or when one parent is not there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. When one
to be
parent.
fair, even when a father leaves, the children get affected.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
you know, uh, but they do get affected. I think they're
Yeah,
conditioned to have both parents, uh, and so I thought this
Yeah.
was probably preparing me maybe for what he's going to face in future about having missed a mother and having had a one-dimensional parent, right? Which is the dad who's a dad, in, I guess, in some
but
ways.
I think Maeve ends up playing the mother role, right? Because he
Yes,
would
she
go to
talks about
her, and
it.
I don't know if you all remember, but Maeve ended up mothering even those other girls to some extent. I
Yeah.
think if I remember correctly, even they would go
Yes.
to her at night if they had a scary dream or something like that. So she ended up really playing that role from a very young age, and
Yeah.
I
It almost
wondered,
seemed like to me. Sorry. Go on, Gayatri.
yeah, no, I wondered, like, while I was reading it, I wondered why she never, like, married or had, a partner or something. And while there were references to that boss of hers, uh, I wondered if she had sort of been mothered out as a young person, and that was enough for her, that sort of thing.
That's a very good point, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to Paula's point, Paula, just so literally like 4 days back, I was both Pranav's my son, and he was down. He first got a cough, and then because I had been having this asthma, I think I was vulnerable. Then I caught it from him, and like there were 3 days where both of us were in bed. And on the last, so we were lying in bed all day, and I've been busy with work, so I hadn't been spending much time with him. So he was so thrilled, and he was holding my hand and just kissing my hand. He never does that. He's an 8-year-old. He's become like a snarky kid who does not want to be hugged or anything. So he was very affectionate towards me. And to Paula's point, he said something very interesting to me. He was like, Mama, if I get kidnapped, if kids get kidnapped with their mother, I don't know why he said this, but if kids get kidnapped with their mother, then I think they'll still feel safe compared
Oh,
to
what a
anyone
very
that's so
beautiful
else.
thing to
sweet.
say.
Yeah. and you're right, because I think that's where I wonder sometimes that today, when like me appreciating the fact that Elna the author allowed her to maintain her individuality throughout, and there was no apologeticness built in, or there was no, like, I always waited till the end of the book to see if they will, like how you expect the person to regret everything and to sort of change themselves towards the end of the book, right? That never happened, and I actually appreciated it. But when he made that statement to me, I was wondering, in today's, like, are we trying to force fit a notion of a very theoretical notion of equality, with like a wrong kind of equality almost? Like, it really made me confused, or just very poignant about how we perceive, how I perceive actually the how fiercely I perceive the independence of a woman, or like, how fiercely I appreciated the fact that yes, she left, but to your, like, like Gautam Buddha also left, and why do we judge women differently?
Right.
That was yeah. So I'm rambling, but I think I am confused about it, and I've been thinking about it over the last few
Right.
days.
What do all of you think about Andrea? Her role. Why did she dislike the kids, or not make much of an attempt with his kids, and and the whole ending? Like, what were all your thoughts about that?
I think Andrea did love. Sorry, forget the name of the father. What was the name?
Cyril.
Cyril.
Okay, so she did love him dearly, but she was territorial.
Right.
In the sense that she did see the two kids as, not as of her own, and so she did not, the way Maeve, for example, accepted Andrea and
Yeah.
the two kids. I think she failed to do that. In her mind, I believe that I love this man, and this is the price that I have to put up.
Right.
This is what I put up with to be with this man.
Right.
And even later, I think the way Danny describes the way the father structured his day, it seemed like for Andrea, the Cyril was the center of her world, and maybe that was too much for the father, and that's why he started going to church or what have you, like just like created work for himself so that he could be at a distance. And the demise obviously shook her in many ways. I don't think the book provides any context on what kind of a parent she was to her own kids. For the other two kids, it seems like she was an entity who, like they were basically co-existing in the same house, but there was no element of parenting or mentorship or guidance as an elder or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like,
actually, I feel she was the least developed character. Like, I mean, you didn't really get to know her, and her parenting, even with her own kids, was more about like, don't run on the stairs, and right, all very rule oriented, rather than, you didn't see any affection, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like, and you didn't get a sense of her. But then, like, what she did to that boy was also just a bit. I guess the book had a couple of these things that really shook you, like when she threw him out when he was still in school, high school or whatever, right? And that I found was a little, made her a little evil, the evil stepmother kind of. Yeah.
Probably the other thing that also came into this picture is initially, where the Maeve and they returned from church, and so she asks, sort of, they have this stare down, and after hearing their explanation, Andrea says, I'm half Dutch. Up to that point, it has been there. The way the story is written, she's taking on responsibility because of this Dutch factor. I mean, it's Dutch house, and she is like half Dutch, so that's the reason. And the reason these two never get along is because Maeve insists that we are Irish, living in a Dutch house.
Right.
And probably that's, I'll just read this one line over here. Andrea nodded as if there had been some disagreement that now was settled in her favor. So the fact that all of these, the family was staying in Dutch house, virtually made her the winner of any argument or discussion in the house. And that's probably the reason why the kids did not like her, and she wanted that undisputed voice in the house, wanted to be the undisputed voice in the house.
In fact, I'm just seeing chapter 2, where she says, he starts by saying after her first appearance at the Dutch house, she lingered like a virus. And then, he says, Andrea fully warmed, talked about nothing but the house. She was forever going on about some detail of the crown molding or speculating as to the exact height of the ceiling, as if the ceiling were entirely new to us. So, it's quite an interesting way to develop, the role that she came to play in their lives, and, how the relationships would develop. I thought it was intriguing how the use of the house to introduce these complexities of stepmothers or new people in children's lives and so on. It's quite cleverly but delicately brought in. But her presence in the first few chapters is, like you want to push her away and just focus on the kids.
Right. Like a virus, she was hanging around that you wanted to get rid of, I feel she was obsessed with the house and everything it stood for, the wealth, the affluence, all of that. And so she did seem shaken by her husband's death, but until then, I don't know if she loved him. I mean, she was in love with the whole package, is what I felt, the wealth that came along with this man, the house that was, so special.
So I have a perspective over here, which is, so there's a line which says that the father wanted a woman who loved the house. Like that seemed to be the criteria, or that's articulated as a criteria of why he chose Andrea to begin with. It wasn't he felt any higher degree of affection towards her. There's virtually no reference to kind of interaction between the two people, or any kind of whatever. And so I'm just wondering, if you love a person and you know what that person appreciates, would you be disproportionately kind of fixated over it? For one. For other, I think as a territorial person, you want to leave your mark on the territory. Like as a new woman, you want to everything about the house should be
yours.
Me. Yeah.
Right.
And so maybe I wonder if that's all. Her obsession with the house was something to do with that also.
That's a good point. Yeah. Actually, this is something I didn't think of earlier, Apoorv, what you said, that he bought the house as a surprise to his first wife, and it was like the crowning glory of his, having done well to be able to afford a house like this, because they were poor, right? Or I mean, whatever, not well off for sure, their background, and he had built this, business and made so money enough to buy this house. and his wife hated it, the first Elna, right? And so yeah, I didn't think of it like that. He wanted someone who would love the house, and so maybe that's what also drew him to Andrea.
It was almost like a trauma response, I felt.
Right.
Rebound.
His wife, it became very clear to him that his wife, whom he actually loved, left him because she just despised the house. And so somewhere I think it seemed like almost like a rebound reaction, that he felt that, oh, if I find a woman who loves the house, then she will not leave me, or, she'll be the mother of my children.
I'm taking this in a slightly different direction, but on the territorial theme, perhaps. One thing which I found curious is that she did not have a child, like with the person, with Cyril. And in my mind, like, for a woman to establish herself and to, to assume a certain position, you would want to have a child with the man, and that was something which wasn't there. I'm just like, in the entire characterization, this one small, it wasn't also discussed. It never came out. But to my mind, that's such an obvious thing to happen.
Don't you think the house could have played the role of the child? It seemed like both of them bonded over, or thought that they bonded over that one inanimate object.
Yeah, but that doesn't give you the security or the position in some ways. For example, like even politically thinking, whenever there were alliances or there were like number of wives, having a child, like it meant it did something to the relationship. It
sort of cements the relationship.
Right. He was a rich guy. Who was to say that he wouldn't throw her out and marry a third person? It wasn't like there was affection. There was no sign of it. Like, I love her for her.
It was a material relationship in some sense.
Yeah.
But still, especially in the times, I think that this is written in the early 40s, 50s, I suppose, that was very important to have a child with the man. But it is a different dimension. And I think, the house plays the role of the bond for sure. So in her mind, that was good enough, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah,
and to the author's credit, I felt that everything seemed to be unconventional. The only place I felt the conventionalness was brought was in the whole evil stepmother characterization.
Right. She really was evil, right? Like, in terms of throwing out the boy, right? That was really the icing on the cake kind of thing, Yeah. And having, manipulated her husband to get everything put on her name. Paula, you're going to find out. This is all being revealed. But that was also like, the evil stepmother. And then the end, I don't know what you all thought about the end. I somehow felt it was a bit weird, with the mother then looking after the stepmother kind of thing. I didn't like that. I just felt it was too contrived or something.
About the end, I think I've seen that for some reason, maybe there's a commercial angle to it, that authors do bring everything to a happy thing, and like things have to be better than perfect kind of a thing. So the two women living together, this guy doing extremely well in his business, Danny, his daughter being a very successful I think actress.
Yeah. And buying the house. She buys the house, right?
Yeah. It's like some sort of a closure, and it's like for such an imperfect life, now it is all okay.
Yeah, I didn't like that actually, because I think there are enough books that keep you there are enough books written where it doesn't end all with all the knots tied up, and somehow that was a bit disappointing, I would say.
I always like a little more open-ended.
Yeah, that's how life is, right?
Yeah, everything doesn't fall in place. Yeah.
What do you guys think about Maeve's character not finding a real career for herself?
Yes, that was interesting, right? Like she could have. She was obviously very smart. Was she
Yeah.
just happy, sort of doing that and being there to help Danny? And I don't know.
I think she built an identity for herself, which was that I wouldn't be a burden to anyone, and I am going to be there for Danny and others no matter what. And that, like, my I she is the most she aligns more with the stereotypical woman, which is
Right,
like
right.
service of others.
Hmm.
Uh, and so there were aspects of missed opportunities wherein Maeve clearly showed more interest in the business. I mean, like she quizzed Danny about how was the collection, what did this person say that. I mean, all about that. So there's certainly some flair. There was also some amount of persuasive or leadership quality in her. For example, the way she took charge after her dad passed away, or
Yeah.
on that matter, like she made Danny go through medical school without getting into like the value judgments of that decision. So there were these aspects, but um, I think in her mind the identity was built around her being the caregiver in some ways, and she was happy as long as that happened. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't the identity of a leader or a provider, if you will.
Right.
That's a great point. I hadn't realized that until now, Apur, that the mother and the daughter were like, one was so atypical female and the other was like so typical. Yeah.
She reacted, and yet, I mean, she gave to the family or to Danny what the mother didn't give. Right? What the mother
Yeah.
gave to the world, she
Yeah.
gave to her brother, I guess. And it was a reaction.
Yeah, and I mean, in real life, you have people like this, right? Who have, who do exactly opposite of their parents precisely because they felt that
Right.
as parent, when they become parents, they are.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have friends who, uh, didn't want to have full-time careers because they felt that they've different, like when their friends came home, they would ask, "Where's your mom?" And it would be odd that mom wasn't at home, whereas they liked it when they went to their homes. And and I always had a uh, discussion about, but didn't you have the other thing too? Didn't you feel pride that my mother was doing something different? But I think you only think from your point of view as kids, and then I think so. I think it's a sort of a very normal reaction that she's done, but maybe she could have, she could have done something different about. Again, I haven't read the full book, but she could have maybe portrayed her differently, just to bring in a little different perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
over time,
my
it's,
impression was she was certainly the smarter amongst the two, more both from an intellectual and an emotional quotient perspective. But
Yeah.
circumstances maybe led her to
Yeah.
adopt an identity which did not leverage those two strengths.
yeah.
She probably never really looked for another career, but she's the sort of person that I thought grew from the inside out, in the sense that she was not looking for something out there.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
True, true.
Thing that she has of herself as a child, uh, how she looks after people in the house, but she doesn't get into the details like how Andrea does. She's not looking for something, outside her immediate family. She's more of a family person, and it's like she is looking to keep the family business going, but not for a career.
But for the sake of the family.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yes. And not for the sake of the house.
I think in unwritten
Yes.
sorry, building a little bit on that, I think unwritten value for her seems to be loyalty. The way you said, Ajay, that she would have done it for the family, so there's a sense of loyalty towards the family, or towards the person, like the fruit and vegetable vendor who was her first boss. Like there's this fierce sense of loyalty. I don't really.
Right.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to go.
Yeah, actually, so do I.
So
Yeah.
But I'm now. I'll probably finish it in 2 days now. I think now.
Do finish it. Yeah. So.
But thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Apur. Bye. 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 Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.